A lot of people on my stream have requested an Enhancement Shaman guide, as I've been playing it a lot for the past 2 months. I used to play the spec a lot in Shadowlands, and so I was somewhat used to the basics, but with the pruning and class changes over the years, I had to relearn a lot of things and managed to reach around 3750 rating, which I would say is pretty good right now. And in this video, I want to teach you guys everything you need to know to get started with your Enhancement Shaman adventures and start pushing your own rating. We will go over the talents, best stats, best trinkets, and how to maximize your damage with the perfect rotation. After watching this video, you will know everything you need to know to start playing Enhancement Shaman and improve with the spec on your own. You won't need any other guides anymore, at least for the time. If there ever comes a time where you will need another one, I will make another one, don't worry. So after watching this video, you'll be good to go. All right, let's go. Starting with the talent tree, which is basically this one. So starting with the hero talents, both of them are viable, honestly. But Stormbringer is outperforming Totemic by a little bit right now. And it's also genuinely just way easier and less of a hassle to manage your totems, manage your cooldowns more. Stormbringer is just way easier, way more fun in my opinion too. If you want to go for something to get started with, go for Stormbringer. If Totemic ever gets better, I'll update you, but currently Stormbringer is a little bit better than Totemic. Some people still play Totemic, but most of the people in the top keys are moving over to Stormbringer or have already moved over to Stormbringer. So this is currently honestly the only viable hero talent, I would say, and that's about that. Starting with the Shaman class tree, and there's a lot of variety you can do here. You can go for the reduces the cooldown of most totems, Totemic Surge, which most people don't go for. You can go for the more supporting route by going for the Healing Stream Totem and Elemental Resistances. And this way you give your entire team a 6% damage reduction for Fire, Frost, and Nature damage, which isn't a lot in this season, so most people don't opt for this. But if you need this extra little bit of defensive and want to help out your team a little bit more, you can go for this one. But this is basically the basic talent tree that most people use. You can, for some dungeons, go for the Poison Cleansing Totem by opting out of a Static Charge or Refreshing Waters, and then go for the Poison Cleansing Totem. Somewhat helpful in Algotha Academy on the first pull / first boss, where you can just cleanse everyone from the Lashed debuff poison thingy, but most of the people don't go for this one. If you want to get started, this is the most perfect one. You get a Purge, you get cooldown reduction on your Capacitor Totem, you get bonus agility, you get Jetstream, which removes snares. So the circles on Nexus Point, the chains on Seed of the Triumvirate, and a few more things I believe. You can remove all of these things for your entire group. If you hit every single one of your team members with this cast, with this Windrush Totem cast, you will cleanse every single one circle. So really, 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 really good in Seed of the Triumvirate, as the chains are just cast on everyone. So I would always use this for almost every dungeon. I would never opt out of this. I could see some people opting out of Purge because some dungeons just simply don't require a Purge. Like, you don't necessarily need it in Skyreach, for example. So you can opt out of this one, go for here, go for the Totemic Surge cooldown, or go for 2 points in Static Charge. Really flexible here. You can choose whatever you want. And over on the enhancement tree, there unfortunately isn't a lot of variety. There are currently 2 builds on the Enhancement Shaman tree that are both really viable. It is about a 50-50 spread across both builds. So the first one is this one, where you go for the Sundering build with the increased haste and the Primordial Storm at the end, which I go for most of the time. Or you remove these 3 points, put 1 point into Feral Spirit, and then max out your Apex talent. Now, as you can tell, I don't like this build that much compared to the other one, since I really like this haste buff. And Sundering gives you just a 30-second cooldown, which is up at all times, basically. You never rest on this. You use this on cooldown. More on that later. This just gives you more consistent damage. Primordial Storm is also a huge damage button. I prefer this build, the Sundering build, simply because I gain 15% haste, and haste feels awesome on Enhancement Shaman. Haste is one of the most fun stats on Enhancement Shaman by far, and having another 30-second cooldown button is really nice, as without this you will only have the 2-minute cooldown button, which will make you feel quite a bit weaker. You won't be, but it just won't be as much fun, and you will feel like you're somewhat useless during the 2-minute cooldown window of Ascendance. So if you want to get started, I would recommend you this one. It's just more fun. And I will also go more into detail on the rotation of this exact build. The rotation for this build is honestly just a little bit less button pressing, but way less fun in my opinion. So I will go over this build. All right, now let's go to the stats. The best stats for Enhancement Shaman currently are Mastery and then Haste. Some guides will tell you to go for haste and then mastery, but mastery is just way, way, way better than haste, as it will just give you a higher chance of resetting your Storm Strike. If you get Storm Strike resets, it means you will deal additional damage on your next Storm Strike, plus you will just have more damage in general. If you don't get Storm Strike resets and your Storm Strike just stays on cooldown, you will just lose a ton of damage, right? Plus it will increase your chance to trigger Wind Fury weapon and Storm Surge, which is the buff that I talked about with the Storm Strike reset, and increases your damage overall. So this is just the best stat you want to go for. You should aim for about 68% mastery. I currently am on 71, but I have the Flask of the Magus active. So without that, but with Sky Fury, I am at about 69%, which is nice. And haste. Haste is, as I said, a really fun stat for Enhancement Shaman. Just makes you press your buttons faster, makes you deal more damage, but isn't as important as mastery. So we are aiming for about 21%, which I am overshooting a little bit right now with 21.7%, but that's completely fine. As long as I'm not getting diminishing returns, it is completely fine. So I would also always aim for 68% mastery, 21% haste, and then the rest. It doesn't really matter what you get at the end. Now, trinkets. One of the trinkets, you can already guess, is obviously Gaze. I don't think there's any spec that doesn't run Gaze. I unfortunately didn't have the chance to get it yet, but if you have the chance, if you can, you should get Gaze. Even on Hero Track, it is the best trinket that you can get right now. And the second best, by far the second best, I think it is even outperforming Gaze on Enhancement Shaman at some polls, is the Ergotha Puzzle Box. Now, Ergotha Puzzle Box gives you 844 mastery. Now let's press this and then you will see how much mastery I get. I get about 40% mastery, which is insane. 40% mastery gives you infinite cooldowns, infinite button presses. I still have it on Hero Track, by the way. So if I get this on Myth Track, my damage will go completely ballistic. I just hope that I get my Gaze as well, because it is a stat stick for mastery plus insane agility stats. Those are the two trinkets you want to go for. If you're unlucky and you don't get them, or if you don't raid at all, you can go for Radiant Plume, which is in the raid. So if you don't raid, you should go for Heart of the Wind or Solar Flare Prism. I wouldn't go for Ember Wing Feather if you have Ergotha Puzzle Box, because using one of them will put the other one on cooldown as well. So you will just not be able to use them at the same time. And you should not use two unused trinkets at all. So I would decide between them, but I would, if you can, always go for Ergotha Puzzle Box. Now, the embellishments / crafts, you should always go for a weapon craft. This is no matter which spec or class you're playing, you should always go for a weapon craft and put, in this case, Dark Moon Sigil Hunt on it. Dark Moon Sigil Hunt will give your spells and abilities a chance to grant you 85 secondary stats for 15 seconds based on the target's creature type. Now, I don't know which creature type gives you which stat, but it's just a free stat stick, best embellishment in the game probably right now, combined with the Arcana Weave lining, which you should always put on your pants or your cloak, whichever is the lowest item level that you have right now. It doesn't really matter which one you go for, but in my case, it was the pants that I didn't have. I think I had Adventurer pants at the time, so I put them on my pants. But if you have Myth Track pants, for example, you can opt in to, you can decide to go for the cloak, and it doesn't really matter. If you have both of them on Myth Track, you can even put them on your wrists. So you are really flexible with that craft. I don't think there's any variety here. You should always go for Dark Moon Sigil Hunt and Arcana Weave Lining, because these two are just the most broken embellishments right now. Not broken, but really, really strong. The strongest that are out right now, since they will give you flat agility, 44 agility, and your ally's primary stat by 11. So if it's int, you even profit from that. And if it's agility, you just get extra agility, which is always nice to have, right? Now, some people also go for the main hand embellishment craft. You should never do that if you have a Myth Track item. You should always put your Myth Track / the highest item level item on your main hand. It will just increase your damage a little bit more, and the proc chance of your embellishment doesn't really get reduced. So always go for the high item level on your main hand and you're good to go. All right, now the enchants, very basic. You go for the double acuity of the Render Eye on your weapon, Mark of the World Soul, Amir Drizzle Gaze, Rune of the Avoidance, and then on your pants you put on the Forest Hunter's Armor Kit, which will give you flat agility and stamina. Always good to have stamina, as Shaman really lacks on the survival aspect. Lynx's Dexterity, and 2 times Eyes of the Eagle. Going over the gems, you should always put in 1 Indecipherable Eversong Diamond, which will give you 32 primary stat. Really good to have. There's no really real variety here. Always go for the Indecipherable Eversong Diamond. And then you should try to fill out your mastery, as I said, with the Flawless Quick Amethyst, which will give you 60 mastery and 7 haste. So your best 2 main stats, put them on your neck, on your rings, and whenever you can, if you are unlucky in your vaults, you should go for, you can also put them on your helmet, on your wrists, and I think also on your belt, right? Yeah. And consumables, really easy. Go for Flask of the Magisters, just gives you mastery. Great to have, as I said. Lights potential, if you're at a level where you should use combat potions, so 15 plus, probably 16 plus, giving you 695 primary stat for 30 seconds, which is incredible damage boost. And then food, Silver Moon Parade is most optimal, but not everyone can have that. Food doesn't really matter either. As long as it's not hearty, you will probably use it eventually in the run anyway, since you will die of some random stuff. But if you can, Silver Moon Parade, great to have. And the Void Touched Augment Rune. These are expensive, not really needed. You will also lose this buff if you die, so I would be careful with these. I think there's a weekly with housing and stuff where you can get three each week. You can keep them at that, use them at your highest keys, and if you lose them, you lose them. But I wouldn't spend a lot of money on these Void Touched Augment Runes if you're not going for the top keys right now. All right, so let's talk about the good stuff. The cooldowns we have. Enhancement Shaman only has 2 cooldowns, honestly, which is Ascendance, which is a 2-minute cooldown, and if you're going for the build that I recommended you, Sundering, which is a 30-second cooldown. As you can tell, you can put 4 Sunderings in a Ascendance cooldown window, which is also what I would recommend you doing at all times. You should always use Sundering on cooldown, no matter what. If there's a mob, if there's no mob, if there's 1 mob, if there's 50 mobs, no matter what, you should always keep your Sundering on cooldown. No matter if you lose your haste, no matter if you lose your Primordial Storm, you should always keep them on cooldown. Now, why? You always want to use Sundering whenever Ascendance is up. And if Ascendance is up, but Sundering is down for like 15 seconds, you lose 15 seconds worth of damage, and that is quite a lot. You will not maximize your damage at all. You can use Ascendance then, but then your Ascendance will be out of sync with your Sundering, which will just make everything worse. So if you have Ascendance up, just wait for Sundering to be back up and always use them on cooldown. Don't separate them. Don't do separate usages of them. If you have Ascendance up and you think you don't really need it right now, you can use Sundering and wait for Sundering to be back up to use Ascendance again. You can use Sundering without Ascendance, but you cannot use Ascendance without Sundering. It's kind of complicated, but I think you get the gist, right? Okay, so I will show the big rotation, so the big pull, which is like the first pull in Mysara Caverns, the first pull in Skyreach, where you usually Bloodlust and stuff. I will show that on a replay right here, but I will explain to you what I'm doing to make it easier for you to understand, right? So while the tank is pulling and is getting towards the end of the pull, you start using your puzzle box. Then you use your potion, click Bloodlust, Voltaic Blaze to spread your flame shocks. Sundering, don't use Primordial Storm yet. That is really important. Keep your Primordial Storm for later. I will explain it then. Ascendance, Crash Lightning whenever it's up. There is a high chance you will press like 6 Crash Lightnings in a row because it just resets it all the time. And then you press Wind Strike / Storm Strike, whichever is up right now, right? And right before Doom Winds ends, not Ascendance, Doom Winds. Right before Doom Winds ends, you press Primordial Storm. Now, why are we going for this wacky little min-maxing damaging stuff? Doom Winds will increase your chance to activate Wind Fury Weapon by 100% and the damage of Wind Fury Weapon by 20%. And Primordial Storm are 3 separate attacks, and as long as Doom Winds is up, using Primordial Storm, every single attack of Primordial Storm will be triggered by Wind Fury. So you will basically have 6 attacks, almost doubling your entire damage with Primordial Storm, and just doing way more damage overall, right? So always use it right before Doom Winds ends. Just keep a track of your Doom Winds buff. I use the cooldown manager of Blizzard that's implemented right now. You can see it on the above the enemy health bar. Now, as Ascendance runs out, you will have around 2 seconds left on Flame Shock on the enemy targets. To prevent them from falling off, you should always use Lava Lash to just refresh the dot and spread them on a few more targets, right? It isn't that important if you miss it, but if you want to maximize your damage, you should always, at the end of your Ascendance rotation, press Lava Lash instantly. Okay, now your Ascendance ran out. Now, what's the rotation when Ascendance is on cooldown? Every single rotation of you starts with Voltaic Blaze. No matter how big of a pull, no matter if it's just 1 mob, you just put Flame Shock on 5 targets max, and then you go for your main rotation, which is Sundering. Once again, don't use Primordial Storm yet. just profit of the 15% haste buff you get, then you should probably be around 10 stacks of Maelstrom weapon. So then you will use your Tempest procs, which is your hero talent, or your Chain Lightning, or your Lightning Bolts, depending on if it's AoE or single target. And then while you have the chance to press Primordial Storm, now Doom Winds can also randomly proc if Ascendance is on cooldown. Now every single Maelstrom weapon spender, so Chain Lightning, Tempest, Lightning Bolt, have a 0.5% chance to unleash Doom Winds per Maelstrom weapon spent. That is also the reason why you always use 10 stacks on every single Maelstrom weapon spender, right? So you maximize the proc chance of your Doom Winds. Using 10 stacks every single time gives you basically a 5% chance to trigger Doom Winds. This is the most RNG part of this spec, which is sometimes really annoying, as your damage sometimes really depends on it. But that is also where the fun comes from, right? If Doom Winds procs, you basically feel like a god. Now, in that 15-second window where Primordial Storm is still active, you should fish for Doom Winds procs. Now, why? As I explained, Doom Winds gives you a 100% proc chance on Wind Fury weapon, and Primordial Storm has basically 3 attacks that will trigger Wind Fury weapon. Don't greed too hard to lose out on your Primordial Storm. If you feel like you won't reach 10 stacks anymore, or if you feel like Doom Winds isn't a thing anymore, accept it and just send Primordial Storm. No matter if it's 1 stack or 10 stacks, it will still deal a fair bit amount of damage. But if you can, if you have all of your buttons up, if you don't have any cooldowns left, then you should always try fishing for a Doom Winds proc to maximize Primordial Storm's damage. Alright, now we've gone over the core rotation, over the small rotation, and basically your entire gameplay, right? But that is not all. I want to give you some more tips to maximize your damage. Whenever you press Ascendance, your Storm Strike will become ranged. But I would never recommend you to go away from the packs. Because if Doom Winds is active, you will unleash a devastating storm around yourself, dealing 7,000 Storm Strike damage every 1 second to nearby enemies for 10 seconds. Now, as you can see here, if I press Ascendance, you will see this little wind. I don't attack anything right now, and I'm still dealing a good amount of damage, 68k damage, without doing anything. So I would always recommend you to stay close, stay near the mobs, even if you're ranged, but make use of your range as well. There is a mini-boss right after the first boss in Algathar Academy, the little wind guy, which will cast a massive circle around him, which will knock you back if you stay inside of it, right? But your Ascendance attack range is big enough to keep attacking the target while staying outside of that ring's range. So if you have Ascendance up at that moment, which you should have right after the first boss, right? It should be back up at that time. You can time it to use it right before the boss uses, right before the mini-boss uses the little circle knockback thing, right? That way you can keep damaging the target while no one else can accept the range and maximize your damage basically, right? Okay, second tip. What happens if you desync Sundering? Now, don't worry, I will not visit you at night and unalive you. It is completely fine. But if it is ever desynced, if you desync Ascendance from Sundering or Sundering from Ascendance, doesn't really matter which way around, I would honestly sacrifice the damage you could do at that very moment, time it on the next 30-second interval of Ascendance. So if you have Sundering up, but your Ascendance is on cooldown for 1 minute and 45 seconds, just wait until it reaches 1 minute and 30 seconds, or 1 minute, or 30 seconds, and so on. Never go for the 4 to 5 second procs. Even if Doom Wind procs randomly, I would not send Sundering yet. I would always keep it up until the 30-second windows or the next 30-second interval comes up to use it then. That way you will just sync them up again and maximize your damage again. Now, as I said, you should always aim to use your Maelstrom weapon spenders on 10 stacks and 10 stacks only. Usually that isn't a problem, especially if you get to a point where you have high haste, so 65% plus. But if you are completely dry, don't have any storm strikes left, no crash lightning resets, basically nothing up anymore, but you have like 6 stacks on your Maelstrom weapon, just send your Chain Lightning or your Lightning Bolt, and I'm pretty sure your Crash Lightning or your Storm Strike will get a reset, and you will be basically energizing yourself up again. Now, the next tip is rather unknown. I've not known it either for quite a while, but if there's a quick pull right after the dungeon starts, so Magus' Terrace, for example, I would recommend you to use your Algathar puzzle box 1 second before the key starts. So usually there's like a 10-second timer, right? Right when the timer hits 1 before the dungeon starts, you should start casting your Elgithar puzzle box. The reason why is you will get the buff of the Elgithar puzzle box, but the puzzle box will reset with the dungeon's timer, with the dungeon's start. So if you use it right before the dungeon starts, you will get the 20-second buff, but the cooldown will not incur. So you will just have a free buff. And if you can manage to squeeze in a lights potential as well, so your combat potion, that will also reset. So if you want to min-max, start using your lights potential and then your Elgithar puzzle box right before the dungeon starts, and you will get a massive damage boost at the beginning of the run. Now the next tip is really helpful if you are struggling to survive some pulls. Enhancement Shaman has a lot of just mainstream defensives like Elemental Warding, Earth Elemental, Astral Shift, and Nature's Guidance, but you still feel very, very squishy at times. Most people don't know that if you go for the Wind Veil talent, that your interrupt will also become a defensive. So if you interrupt the spell successfully, you will get a 15% spell damage reduction for 12 seconds. Now, Wind Shear, your kick, has a 12-second cooldown. So you basically have a 100% uptime on 15% damage reduction on spells. This is huge if you can manage to kick every single time. You won't obviously be able to kick every single time successfully. Someone will snipe it, someone will use a stun, someone will use whatever, a knockback. You will sometimes just fail your kick. But I would recommend you to use Wind Shear, no matter if it's a cast that's never going to go through, no matter if it's a reanimation cast on Mysara Caverns, the little zombie guys. Even then, always use this to keep up your Wind Veil buff at all times. Just gives you a 15% flat damage reduction. Really big, really huge, makes you way tankier than you believe. And the last big tip I have is to always wait a bit before you start blasting all your cooldowns. I would recommend you to wait a bit longer than any other spec, because I feel like Enhancement Shaman has so much burst that you are able to rip thread off a tank that has been attacking the mobs for 10 seconds straight. I had moments where my tank thought I was ready to blast. Even in voice comms, he said, all right, go for it, go deal damage. And then I just blew up. Why? Because Enhancement Shaman's initial burst with Sundering and Ascendance and Storm Strike spam and Crash Lightning spams is tremendous. You will top the DPS meters at the first 5 to 10 seconds, right? No one will get close to you. You will fall off after that, but your burst is insane. So wait a little bit longer than anyone else on the group. Don't worry, you won't lose a lot of damage there. You will honestly just survive and deal more damage, right? So always wait a bit, especially if it's a bear, because bears need a little bit more time to gain aggro. Honestly, anything besides Brewmaster needs a little bit longer than usual to gain aggro, right? So wait a bit and then start blasting. And I promise you, you will not die anymore. Now, let's go over to the best macros you can use on an Enhancement Shaman. If you have a race / a racial that will give you a buff, like Orcs attack damage buff, Trolls attack speed buff, or the Magha Orcs stat buff, you can use this macro right here, which is this one. Show tooltip Ascendance / cast Berserking / cast Ascendance. Now Berserking is flexible for whatever you have. So Berserking is the one for Trolls, which will give me a 10% haste buff. Just a little minor haste buff. I just like haste, right? But if you're an Orc, you can use the attack power buff. Or if you're a Magha Orc, you can use the stat buff. This will most of the time align with your Ascendance cooldown anyways. My Berserking has a 3-minute cooldown and my Ascendance has a 2-minute cooldown, right? So every other Ascendance I will have Berserking up as well. Not the end of the world, just a little buff anyway, so why not use it here? This is a great macro you can use. And then I would really recommend you to use mouse over / cursor macros. So for the Capacitor Totem, I go for the cursor. This will just put the totem wherever I'm aiming with my mouse. So right here, without having the extra click of the green circle thingy, I will just have it instantly on the floor, instantly, basically stunning them way faster than doing another click. Enhancement Shaman is a really fast-paced spec, right? So you want to use as little inputs as possible to use your utilities and use your defensives and stuff. So get used to cursor macros and mouse over macros. Now, why mouse over macros? Mouse over macros are usually used for Purge on enemy buffs. So Magus' Terrace has these little priest guys that put shields on the enemies. You can purge them. The second boss in Magus' Terrace has a buff that you can purge. There is a lot of shields in very various dungeons this season that you can just simply purge, like the little zombie guys in Mysara Caverns. You can purge those shields as well. These are massive shields, by the way. So, but be careful. They deal damage when they are removed. So don't purge them all at once because your team might just explode. And then you also have a cleanse spirit buff, which will just cleanse, which is useful in Windrunner Spire on the duo fight to remove these little spirits that run towards you. You can cleanse them, for example, and a few more things in other dungeons. And if you go for the Earth Grab Totem for things like Seed of the Triumvirate, first boss to stun, to root the little blob guys, also use a cursor macro right here. Those are basically all the macros you need, not much. Just a little getting used to if you don't have played with cursor / mouse over macros before, but I would really recommend you these. They will also be down in the description below. You will find every single macro down there too, and you can just copy paste them into your game and then learn how to play with them if you haven't already. Now, I talked about races before. Now, which are the best races for Enhancement Shamans? It doesn't really matter since you're a DPS. DPS races usually don't matter. But if you want to min-max, Orc is best for Blood Fury, which is the attack power buff. Dwarves, if you are struggling to survive bleeds, like the ones on Skyreach's first boss, for example. Magha is, I think, currently the best if you want to min-max your stats, since it gives you a decent buff on one of your secondary stats. It's randomized, I believe, and just if you're lucky, you get a mastery proc. Nice to have, and it also aligns with Ascendance better, since it's only a 2-minute cooldown. Before the video ends, I want to go over a cons and pros list. I will start off with the cons, which, first point, Enhancement Shaman is very squishy. You have your one defensive, which is Astral Shift, reducing your damage taken for 40% for 12 seconds on a 1.5 minute cooldown. 1.5 minutes on a defensive is, in today's day and age, really low. And now the 40% is nice, but I would honestly prefer having 2 stacks and then having it be 30%, right? That's basically your only reliable defensive that you have. You can also go for Earth Elemental, which usually everyone goes for, but that one is a 3-minute cooldown and only gives you a 15% max health for 30 seconds. Great if you can be topped off. Great if there is like a little burst window that you just can't defend otherwise, but that's about it. The good thing about Shamans, though, is you have just a lot of natural defensives, right? You have Elemental Warding, giving you 8% damage reduction. You have Wind Veil. If you use kicks, you should have it up at all times. You have basically somewhat of a cheat death, which will heal you instantly for 40% of your max health if you drop below 35% of your health, which has a 45-second cooldown. So if you want to play with it, if you want to risk it, you can go for it. But as I said, really risky. Sometimes you just pop out of nowhere. It happens, isn't really rare. Earth Shield, honestly, does fuck all. It's great to have, but I don't think Earth Shield ever saves you anytime. If you would die, you would die with or without the Earth Shield anyway. Healing Stream Totem does nothing for you. But if you go for this one, it gives you a 6% damage reduction for all the elemental stats, which isn't a lot this season. And last but not least, you have Nature's Protection, which will give you Lightning Shield a 3% damage reduction at all times, which you have up at all times. So you don't really have to do a lot of thinking to defend yourself, but if you're out of defensives and there's a big spell coming your way, you will most likely pop. You have Reincarnation, but that's on a 30-minute cooldown. Doesn't reset on dungeon reset, so not even usable every single dungeon, unfortunately. That is just the main gripe that I have. You don't have a lot of defensives, only one good one, which is Astral Shift, which I said already. I would like to have it a lower cooldown with less damage reduction. If you have to press Earth Elemental to survive, you are basically praying to God that it is enough. That's all I can say. Now, the second con part, which can be seen as a pro part, is it is really RNG based. Some pulls, you will overperform every single one in your group. Even if you're 10 item levels below, you will manage to outperform every single one if you have good RNG with Doomwind procs, with resets. But there will also be windows where you're simply below the tank. Since you just don't get any resets, you don't get any Doomwind procs, you're just sitting there like a wet noodle, no abilities left to press, you're just praying for something to happen, right? Most of the people then start to panic and start pressing Sundering, putting all of their cooldowns out of sync, and fucking it up even more, right? If it is ever like that, just stay calm. It happens. Your overall damage will probably be around every other DPS. So don't need to panic right there. Don't fuck up your sinks. So if you're ever unlucky with procs, just accept it and move on to the next pull where it might get better or it might not. As I said, RNG based, you can't really predict anything here. But if you have good procs, you're basically a god, right? So if you get procs, you go big boom stupid damage, so which is great and fun. And another pro is you have so much utility, which is also the reason why I think this spec doesn't have a lot of defensives. You have so much utility that everyone wants you in your group. I never had an issue to get into groups at any key level. On +4s, on +10s, on +17s, on +19s. I get into +20s. Haven't timed one yet, but I can get into one simply because you bring so much utility to the group. You have Sky Fury, which gives you a flat 2% damage buff, and Wind Fury on yourself and every other member in your group. You get Bloodlust, which is great. You have stuns, roots, heals, CC removals, Purge, and the shortest kick in the game. I don't think there's any other kick that is shorter than 12 seconds. And the last pros in this list are, it is incredibly fun. It is the most fun DPS by far this season. I've tried almost everything except Fire Mage. I'm still gonna try out Fire Mage, but I couldn't get to it yet. I have tried every single one, and in my opinion, Enhancement Shaman is one of, if not the most fun DPS spec in this entire game. It is so fun, in fact, that it made me quit tanking. I have never quit tanking since Dragonflight. I have only tanked, and it made me quit tanking, which is honestly insane. But I mean, that says a lot, right? If you don't believe me, you can try it yourself. It's really easy to get into if you're watching this video, as I said. So if you can, go for it. And if there's Enhancement Shaman mains that are watching this video right now, if I missed anything, drop more information down in the comments below for everyone to get started. And at the time of this recording, I will also be live on Twitch. So come check me out. Watch me do some 19s and 20s. If you like this video, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel to not miss any more Enhancement Shaman content and tanking content, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.